Hello, beautiful. I hope you're doing well in this era of a little bit of economic uncertainty and certainly, certainly political chaos. I don't know about you, but I scroll through the New York Times app on my way to the Sudoku and sometimes feel just absolutely assaulted by the headlines. So, I hope you're managing your mental health. I'm doing my best to manage mine, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I'm not going to lie. All right. So today what I want to talk to you about is that fear that you may experience of doing it wrong, doing your taxes wrong. The awful things that might happen to you if, you do your taxes wrong, you get audited, you get caught, you get thrown in jail, right? I know that there's a lot of sort of fantasizing about the worst case scenario as we're in this moment of the year when your tax return is due, and you are trying to do your best to do the best tax return you can when, maybe you did have good systems throughout the year and it's pretty organized now. Maybe you did not and you're paying the price, right? I kind of think of it like having a physical exam. And like if you have a physical tomorrow and you have been smoking and drinking and eating 4 cheeseburgers a day for a year and your physical is tomorrow, it's probably not gonna, your results are probably not gonna come out the way that you want, right? So doing the best that you can with what you have is the name of the game right now at this time of year. But to make things better, you have to actually implement some systems, right? You actually have to have a system for your receipts, a system for your tax documents, and then a system to track everything, which we call bookkeeping. With those 3 systems, really your life calms way, way, way down. Tax time becomes much, much simpler because it all has a place to go. And then when it comes time to actually take those numbers and put them on your tax return, they're all there for you, right? That's the whole point of having systems, right? And if you're wondering like, well, where would I get those? I mean, that's what my whole program is. So if you want a link to that, I'll put a link in the show notes. But I built a whole program to give you those systems. So if you're feeling it right now and you're like, I want this to be better next year, like I got you. I built a thing for that. All right. Well, that's not really what I'm here to talk about today, though. I want to talk about that fear you might be experiencing and give you a framework to think about doing your taxes that I think takes a lot of that fear out of it. Okay. So here goes. The basic thing to know about an audit is that it is a checkup that happens retroactively. It happens after you filed your tax return, and you can be audited for anything up to 3 years. Any single thing on your tax return or multiple things for 3 years. Okay, so it's open to scrutiny for 3 years. If you've made misstatements or mistakes or understated your income, then that statute of limitations goes all the way back to 6 years. So that's how long and how far back the IRS can go looking at old tax returns. And that's how audits happen. They're announced with a letter from the IRS. Always. P.S. If you get a scary phone call saying it's the IRS, it's not the IRS. They don't announce audits over the phone. Those 100% of those are scams. You can feel totally confident that you can hang up that phone call, and the IRS would be very happy if you reported that phone call. Maybe note the number. All right. So an audit is always going to be announced to you in the form of a letter, and it's always going to be looking backwards at a tax return you already filed. So if you're having that fearful feeling, right? How can you stop the fear or mitigate that fear as you file your tax return? There's a really simple key, and that is to follow the rules in the first place. Because honestly, if you are already following all the rules, you can still be audited because that's the check and balance in our system. That's the only checkup there is. And it can actually still be fair for the IRS to take a look even at taxpayers who are doing nothing wrong. This can happen to you. You can be audited and have done nothing wrong. But here's the thing. If you are audited and you've been following all the rules, you've kept the receipts for every expense you claimed on your tax documents, or you followed the rules for the items that you get to deduct that don't give you receipts, like mileage in your home office and things like that. If you followed all those rules, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You will simply respond to that audit. You will show the receipts. That's the time. That's why you keep receipts in the first place. They're because of an audit, because the audit uses receipts to look at your proof. They are your proof that the thing really happened, right? And following the rules that exist for things where you don't get a receipt, like for example, for mileage, that requires you to do some other rules, right? Like keep a mileage log. And I have podcast episodes on each and every one of these complex rules for deductions in your business. So definitely please take advantage of the Sunlight Tax podcast archive, because it's going to be really helpful to you. I'm happy to link a couple of the key episodes in the show notes as well. All right. So just knowing that you're doing it right in the first place, that you are following all the rules, hopefully that brings your level of fear way down, because as long as you are not going to be in trouble. And even if you do have to respond to an audit and actually show your mileage log or show your receipts, as long as you have them, you're good. The IRS says, oh, cool. Okay, thank you. Glad you did that. Glad you had that. We'll leave you alone now. Okay? That's actually the point. Okay? So let's just talk about that a little bit. If you think about it, when you have a small business, right, when you file a Schedule C, you get to self-report your income and your expenses, okay? Now, by contrast, if you're an employee, if you get a W-2, then your employer is sending a copy of that W-2 to the IRS, and they're sending a copy to you. So you use that copy to do your own taxes, but the IRS already has its copy of your W-2. In other words, there's a third party saying, this is what she earned. This is everything, right? And so the IRS already knows that that is true. You have third party verification. When you're a small business, you don't have that. There's nobody sending in documents that the IRS has. They send your 1099s so they can see probably most of, possibly not all of, your income, because some of your reportable income you won't get 1099s for. But they've got all your 1099s and you are self-reporting your expenses, right? That's perfectly fine and perfectly legal. And as long as you follow the rules, you're doing everything right. It's totally cool, right? You got to report all your income as the law requires, and you get to take massive deductions, right? So everything that's ordinary and necessary that you spend money on in your business is deductible. And the only requirement, you're going to tell them what you spent that money in. The only requirement is that you followed the rule in the first place, kept the receipt, or kept the mileage log, or the square footage and the exclusive use rule for your home office, or whatever other rule it is for that specific type of deduction, okay? So as long as you're following those rules, you're good. And most years, literally every single year that you are not audited is a year that the IRS is believing you, is just taking your word for it, right? So when you look at it in that context, it kind of makes sense that every once in a while they check, right? Because think about it, if they never check to see that every self-employed freelancer is following the rules correctly, if they never checked, then we would start making things up, right? We'd start taking bets that maybe they're not going to find out if I'm fudging this, right? So that's why it's fair. That's why it's fair to keep the receipts, follow the rules, all right? The cool thing is I've got you covered. I made a guide, a visual guide to your tax deductions as a small business. And if you haven't gotten it yet, I recommend, it's totally free, and I recommend that you download it, because you can look at that and it literally has all of the rules written out on it. And you can trust that because I'm a licensed tax professional. All right. So if you haven't gotten that tax guide yet, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can get it at sunlighttax.com/deductions guide. That's plural, deductions guide. Or if you just go to sunlighttax.com, there's a big, in the menu at the top, it says deductions guide, and you can get it there. So that guide, it has all the rules. It has all the rules that you need to follow. So just print it out and reassure yourself, double check that you've got everything that you need. And as long as when you claim things on your tax return, you have that backup, you have that proof, you're good. You're fine. It's okay. All right. So I hope that just kind of brings the temperature down, because I've been getting a lot of feedback from a lot of you about, what your biggest fear or roadblock is when it comes to your taxes, and this is one of the biggest issues I've seen, is that a lot of you are suffering from a fear of doing it wrong. Okay? So honestly, the antidote to that fear is actually learning a little bit about the tax rules in the first place, because it ensures that you do it correctly. And if you do get audited, all will be fine. You'll have the documents you need to prove that you were correct in the first place, and the IRS then leaves you alone. And that's the beauty, right? That's kind of what you want. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't already downloaded that visual guide to tax deductions, I encourage you to do it. You can do your own internet research by all means. If I'm not the one you want to trust, fine. You're welcome to do this anywhere you want, but I have made this guide for you. It's a really wonderful free resource, and I encourage you to use it, because knowing these rules, just educating yourself on these tax rules, it actually reduces your fear. It reduces this awful, anxious feeling when you do your taxes. All right. So you can get that guide at sunlighttax.com/deductions guide. And if you have a friend who could use that, feel free to share this episode with them. Also, did you know that podcasts do not grow without you sharing with your friends? So if you hear anything valuable, or you feel like there's a friend you have who could really benefit from something that I say in a podcast, I am beyond grateful when you share the episode. That is the only thing that makes this podcast grow and reach new ears, and I'm very grateful for it. So thank you. All right. So make sure you just review those rules about deductions in your business. It's going to help you really feel good. And if you're wondering how a person might get educated on taxes in a world that we don't have a tax education, I mean, I want you not to feel guilty that you don't know this stuff inherently, because you know it. Nobody comes out of the womb knowing tax law. You have to learn it. And we don't teach it in schools, which I think is bananas, right? But I did create a program that teaches you how to take advantage of all the truly wonderful benefits there are in the tax code when you work for yourself. And it's an awesome program. I really put my heart and soul in it. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's called Money Bootcamp, and I will link to it in the show notes. And that's all I have to say today. So make sure you get that deductions guide. Share this episode with a friend if you found it valuable or you think that they might. And I'll see you next week. Good luck. You can do this without fear. Just a little bit of education is going to reduce your anxiety really dramatically. So that's what I encourage you to do. All right. Take care. See you next time. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm so grateful for that. This video is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.